I paid $19,500 toward my granddaughter's wedding party. The tent, the flowers, the catering, everything she dreamed of. A week later, I discovered the truth, and what I did next left my entire family in shock. I'm grateful you're here. Stay with me until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story reaches. I never imagined that at 70 years old, I'd be dealing with betrayal from my own family. I thought I'd seen everything life could throw at me, raising 3 children mostly alone after my husband passed, working 2 jobs to keep us afloat, sacrificing my own dreams so my kids could chase theirs. But nothing prepared me for what happened with my granddaughter Sienna's wedding. It started on a crisp February morning when Sienna called me, her voice trembling with joy and excitement. Nana Margot, he did it! Bradley proposed last night. I was in my small kitchen in Riverside Heights, New Jersey, making my morning coffee when the phone rang. The moment I heard Sienna's voice, tears sprang into my eyes before she even finished her sentence. Some grandmother's intuition told me this was the call I'd been hoping for. Oh, my precious girl, I whispered, sinking into my kitchen chair, my hand pressed against my heart. Tell me everything, every single detail. Sienna laughed and cried at the same time as she described how Bradley had proposed at the lighthouse overlook in Cape Meridian, the same spot where they'd had their first date 3 years ago. He'd decorated the area with fairy lights and rose petals, gotten down on one knee as the sun set over the Atlantic, and presented her with his grandmother's vintage emerald ring. It was perfect, Nana, absolutely perfect, and all I could think about was calling you. My heart swelled with love for this girl, no, this woman, who had been the light of my life since the day she was born. Sienna was my oldest grandchild, the daughter of my son Donovan. She'd always been special to me, though I tried not to play favorites. As a little girl, she'd spent every summer at my house, helping me tend my tomato plants, learning to bake my famous lemon pound cake, sitting on the porch swing listening to stories about her grandfather Malcolm. Malcolm had passed away 12 years ago from a sudden heart attack, leaving a hole in all our lives that never quite healed. He'd been a postal worker, a simple man with a generous heart who'd loved his family with a quiet, steady devotion. Every day I missed him, but moments like this, big family moments, his absence felt particularly sharp. Your grandfather would be so thrilled, I told Sienna, wiping my eyes. He always said Bradley was a good man. He would have loved to walk you down that aisle. I know, Nana, I wish he could be here too. We talked for over an hour that morning. Sienna told me about her vision for the wedding, something intimate and romantic, surrounded by family and close friends. She wanted a garden ceremony, lots of wildflowers, twinkling lights, and a celebration that felt warm and personal, rather than stuffy or pretentious. Bradley and I have been saving, she explained. We've got about $8,000 set aside. We're trying to keep everything modest. Maybe 75 guests, somewhere local, nothing too extravagant. I heard the slight hesitation in her voice, the unspoken wish for something a little more special than their tight budget would allow. Sienna worked as a pediatric nurse at Riverside General Hospital, and while it was meaningful work that she loved, the pay wasn't spectacular. Bradley was a high school history teacher with the same challenge, a job he was passionate about that didn't pay particularly well. They were good kids, hardworking, responsible, kind. They deserved to have the wedding of their dreams. Over the next several weeks, Sienna and I talked constantly about the wedding. She'd come over to my modest 2-bedroom apartment every Sunday afternoon, and we'd sit at my dining room table with bridal magazines, Pinterest boards on her laptop, and endless cups of tea. My apartment was small but cozy, the place I'd moved to after selling the family home following Malcolm's death. It was all I needed: a bedroom, a little kitchen, a living room with Malcolm's favorite armchair that I couldn't bring myself to get rid of, and a balcony where I grew herbs and flowers in pots. My fixed income from Social Security and Malcolm's modest pension covered my expenses with a little left over each month, which I carefully saved. Look at this venue, Nana, Sienna said one Sunday in March, turning her laptop toward me. It's called Willowbrook Gardens Estate. Isn't it gorgeous? I leaned in to look at the screen. The photos showed a stunning property with ancient oak trees, manicured lawns, a stone fountain, and gardens bursting with flowers. There was a white gazebo, perfect for ceremonies, and a pavilion area for receptions. It's beautiful, sweetheart. Absolutely beautiful. Sienna's face fell slightly. It's also expensive. Just the venue rental is $4,500. Then we need to rent a tent for the reception in case of rain, get chairs and tables, hire a caterer, order flowers. She pulled up a spreadsheet on her laptop. I've been calculating everything. For the wedding I actually want, at this venue, we'd need about $19,500 total. She said the number with a mixture of longing and resignation, as if she was sharing a fantasy she knew couldn't come true. That's more than double what Bradley and I have saved, she continued. So we're looking at other options. There's a community center in Riverside Heights that only charges $500, and if we do the catering ourselves, maybe ask people to bring dishes potluck style. Sienna, I interrupted gently, what if you could have Willowbrook Gardens? She looked at me with confusion. Nana, I just told you it's way out of our budget. What if it wasn't?
My granddaughter's eyes widened as she began to understand what I was suggesting. Nana, no, absolutely not. I can't let you. You're not letting me do anything, I said firmly. I'm offering. Actually, I'm insisting. But that's $19,500. Nana, that's your savings. That's your emergency fund. What if something happens? What if you need. I reached across the table and took both of her hands in mine. Sienna, sweetheart, listen to me. I'm 70 years old. I've lived a good, full life. Your grandfather and I worked hard, saved carefully, and yes, we put away some money for emergencies. But you know what? I'm healthy, I'm comfortable, and I have everything I need. But let me finish, I said gently. Money is just money, sweetheart. It's paper and numbers in a bank account. It can't hug me when I'm sad. It can't make me laugh. It can't give my life meaning. But you know what can? Seeing my granddaughter marry the man she loves in the wedding of her dreams. Being part of that joy, that celebration. That's what gives my life meaning. Tears were streaming down Sienna's face. Nana, I don't know what to say. Say you'll let me do this. Say you'll let your old grandmother give you this gift. Your grandfather would have wanted this too. He'd have moved mountains to see you happy. Sienna came around the table and threw her arms around me, sobbing into my shoulder. I love you so much, Nana Margot. So, so much. I love you too, precious girl. Now, let's book that venue before someone else snatches it up. The next morning, I woke up early and dressed in my best outfit, a navy blue dress suit I'd bought for Sienna's college graduation. I wanted to look proper and composed for what I was about to do. The walk to First National Bank of Riverside Heights took me about 15 minutes. It was a beautiful April morning, cool and crisp, with cherry blossoms just beginning to bloom along Maple Street. I'd banked at First National for over 40 years, since Malcolm and I had first moved to Riverside Heights when Donovan was just a baby. The bank was a solid brick building with tall columns, the kind of place that looked trustworthy and permanent. Inside, the familiar smell of paper and air conditioning greeted me, along with the soft murmur of hushed conversations. Mrs. Whitmore! The voice belonged to Lucia Martinez, one of the tellers who'd been working there for nearly as long as I'd been banking there. How wonderful to see you! How are you feeling? I heard you had a cold last month. Small-town life meant everyone knew everyone's business, but I didn't mind. It felt like community rather than intrusion. I'm much better, thank you, Lucia. Actually, I need to make a significant withdrawal today. Lucia's warm smile faltered slightly. Of course, let me get you set up. How much were you thinking? $19,500. I watched Lucia's expression shift from friendly to concerned. She lowered her voice. Mrs. Whitmore, that's quite a substantial amount. That's nearly half of your savings account. Is everything all right? You're not in any kind of trouble, are you? Her concern was genuine, and I appreciated it. There had been stories on the news about scammers targeting elderly people, convincing them to withdraw money for fake emergencies. Everything is wonderful, I assured her, smiling broadly. My granddaughter Sienna is getting married, and I'm paying for her wedding. It's a gift. Lucia's face relaxed into a warm smile. Oh, how lovely! Sienna, the nurse, right? With the curly brown hair who sometimes comes to visit you? That's the one. She's marrying a wonderful young man named Bradley, and they're going to have a beautiful wedding at Willowbrook Gardens. That's one of the most beautiful venues in the area, Lucia said, pulling up my account on her computer. What a generous gift, Mrs. Whitmore. Sienna is very lucky to have you. As Lucia processed the withdrawal, I thought about what this money represented. Malcolm and I had been so careful over the years. Every paycheck, we'd set aside a little. We'd skipped vacations, driven our cars until they practically fell apart, shopped at thrift stores and clipped coupons, not because we were misers, but because we'd grown up during harder times and understood the value of security. That money had been our safety net, our peace of mind, and now I was giving away nearly half of it. But as I sat there in that bank, waiting for Lucia to count out the cashier's check, I felt nothing but certainty. This was right. This was what money was for. Creating joy, supporting family, making dreams come true. Here you are, Mrs. Whitmore, Lucia said, sliding the cashier's check across the counter. One cashier's check for $19,500 made out to Willowbrook Gardens estate. I looked at the check, at those numbers that represented years of careful saving, and felt profound peace. Thank you, Lucia. Mrs. Whitmore, Lucia called as I turned to leave. Your granddaughter is very blessed to have you. I smiled. I'm the blessed one. That Sunday, I invited the family to dinner at Donovan's house to make the announcement. Donovan, my son, lived in a modest 3-bedroom ranch-style home in the suburbs of Riverside Heights. He'd bought it 15 years ago, back when he was still married to Sienna's mother, Rachel. The divorce had been hard on everyone, especially Sienna and her 2 younger brothers, Cole and Mason. Rachel had remarried a corporate executive and moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, where she had built a new life that rarely intersected with her old one. She sent birthday cards and the occasional check, but her involvement in her children's lives had dwindled to almost nothing. It broke my heart, but I tried to fill some of that gap for my grandchildren. I couldn't replace their mother, but I could be present, loving, and supportive.
Donovan ran a small auto repair shop called Whitmore's Garage on the industrial side of town. It was honest work that he was good at, though the business barely made enough to cover his bills and support his 3 kids. He was a good father, present at every soccer game, every school concert, every parent-teacher conference. But money was always tight. I arrived at Donovan's house at 4:30, carrying my famous lasagna and a chocolate cake. Sienna had picked me up, her excitement barely contained as we pulled into the driveway. "Do you think everyone will be happy?" she asked nervously. "Of course they will, sweetheart. Everyone loves you." But as we walked into the house, I felt a familiar knot form in my stomach, because I knew someone would be there who might not share in our joy. Vanessa Harding. Vanessa was Donovan's girlfriend, though girlfriend seemed like too innocent a word for what she was. She'd entered my son's life about 2 years ago, shortly after his divorce was finalized. At 34, she was 15 years younger than Donovan, with platinum blonde hair that came from a bottle, designer clothes that seemed incongruous with Donovan's modest lifestyle, and a smile that never quite reached her calculating green eyes. She claimed to be a digital marketing consultant, which, as far as I could tell, meant she spent a lot of time on her phone and laptop without any visible means of income. Donovan had mentioned she'd had a boutique marketing firm that had restructured, and she's between major clients right now. What she wasn't between with spending Donovan's money: expensive dinners at the Riverside Manor, weekend trips to New York City, a designer handbag that cost more than Donovan's monthly mortgage payment. Whenever I gently questioned these expenses, Donovan would get defensive.
Mom, Vanessa brings value to my life. She's helping me grow as a person, expand my horizons. Not everything is about money. But it seemed like everything with Vanessa was about money, specifically how to spend it. What bothered me more than her spending habits was how she treated Sienna, Cole, and Mason. She wasn't openly cruel, but there was a coldness there, a barely concealed resentment whenever Donovan gave his children attention or resources. The kids had picked up on it too. Cole, who was 17, openly disliked her and barely spoke to her. Mason, at 15, was more diplomatic, but kept his distance. And Sienna, at 25, was the most gracious of all, trying to be polite and welcoming, even as Vanessa subtly undermined and criticized her at every opportunity. When we walked into the house, I could smell something cooking. Donovan's attempt at his father's signature pot roast, a recipe that Malcolm had perfected over decades and that Donovan had never quite mastered. "Mom, Sienna!" Donovan emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dishcloth. He was tall like his father had been, with Malcolm's gentle brown eyes and easy smile. Grease stains on his jeans and a faded t-shirt from his garage showed he'd come straight from work. "You're early!" "I brought lasagna and cake," I said, kissing his cheek, "just in case the pot roast doesn't turn out. Hey, I'm getting better at it." "Of course you are, sweetheart." Cole and Mason appeared from the living room where they'd been playing video games, both boys giving me hugs. Cole was nearly as tall as his father now, gangly and awkward in the way of teenage boys on the verge of manhood. Mason was shorter, stockier, with a mischievous grin that reminded me of Malcolm in his youth. "Nana Margot," Mason said. "Did you bring the chocolate cake?" "When have I ever forgotten the chocolate cake?" And then Vanessa appeared. She descended the stairs like she was making an entrance at a gala, wearing a cream-colored designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent payment. Her hair styled in perfect waves, her makeup flawless. She'd spent hours preparing for a simple family dinner. "Margot, how lovely to see you! That's such a quaint dress." I looked down at my simple blue cotton dress, which I'd worn to church that morning. "Thank you, Vanessa." "Is that store-bought lasagna?" she asked, eyeing the dish in my hands. "How practical. I know cooking from scratch can be challenging at our age." Our age. She'd managed to lump her 34-year-old self in with my 70 years, while simultaneously making my homemade lasagna sound like it came from a frozen food section. "Actually, I made it this morning, from my mother's recipe." "How sweet. Donovan, darling, should I set the table? I picked up those lovely artisanal cloth napkins from that boutique in Princeton. The ones we talked about? They were $85 for a set of 6, but quality is so important, don't you think?" I watched my son's face tighten slightly. $85 for napkins when he'd told me just last week that he was behind on his electric bill? Dinner was a tens affair. We sat around Donovan's dining room table. Me, Sienna, Bradley, Donovan, Vanessa, Cole, and Mason. The pot roast was overcooked, but everyone ate it politely, except for Vanessa, who picked at her plate while describing a 5-star restaurant in Manhattan she'd read about. Finally, after dessert, Sienna stood up, her hand in Bradley's. "Everyone, we have some exciting news to share," she said, her voice nervous but happy. "Bradley and I have set a date for the wedding, September 28th. "That's wonderful, Donovan," he said, standing to hug his daughter.
"And," Sienna continued, looking at me with tears in her eyes, "we're having it at Willowbrook Gardens. Nana Margot is paying for everything. The venue, the tent, the catering, the flowers. She's giving us the wedding of our dreams." The room erupted in excitement. Cole and Mason cheered. Donovan looked shocked, but pleased. Bradley shook my hand with genuine gratitude and emotion. And Vanessa's face went very, very still. "Wow, Margot," she said slowly, her voice taking on a strange quality. "That's incredibly generous. How much does something like that cost?" $19,500, Sienna said proudly. "Can you believe Nana's generosity?" I watched Vanessa's eyes light up with something that made my blood run cold. It wasn't happiness for Sienna. It wasn't admiration for my gift. It was calculation. Pure, undisguised calculation, like she was adding numbers in her head.
That's quite a chunk of money for someone on a fixed income, Vanessa said, her voice honey sweet but with an edge underneath. I mean, that's more than half your savings, isn't it, Margot? The room went quiet. It was an inappropriate question, bordering on rude, and everyone knew it. It's my money to spend as I choose, I said evenly, and I choose to spend it on my granddaughter's happiness. Of course, Vanessa said quickly, but her eyes never left me. Family is so important. We should all be willing to sacrifice for family. Right, Donovan? My son nodded uncomfortably, clearly not wanting to be pulled into whatever game Vanessa was playing. I mean, Vanessa continued, turning to Sienna, a $19,500 wedding is lovely, but you know what would make it truly spectacular? If you upgraded some of the elements. The basic packages at these venues are always so adequate, but with a little more investment, you could have something truly memorable. The wedding is going to be perfect exactly as we've planned it, Sienna said tight. Oh, I'm sure. I'm just saying that if we're talking about family investing in this wedding, we should make sure it's truly special. The best of the best. After all, you only get married once, right? The way she said family made it clear she was including herself in that category, despite having no actual relationship to Sienna beyond dating her father. I felt a chill run down my spine. Something was very wrong here, though I couldn't quite put my finger on what. The rest of the evening was uncomfortable. Vanessa dominated the conversation, talking about expensive weddings she'd allegedly attended, dropping names of designer florists and caterers, and making subtle digs at Sienna's plans. By the time Sienna drove me home, I was exhausted and uneasy. Nana, I'm sorry about Vanessa, Sienna said as we pulled up to my apartment building. She was being really weird tonight. She was indeed. Sienna, promise me something. Anything. Don't let anyone pressure you into changing your wedding plans. This is your day, yours and Bradley's, not anyone else's. Sienna squeezed my hand. I promise, Nana. Thank you again for everything. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. You already have, sweetheart. You already have. But as I walked into my apartment that night, I couldn't shake the image of Vanessa's face when she had learned about the $19,500. The calculating look in her eyes, the way she'd immediately started suggesting upgrades. I tried to push the worry aside. Surely I was being paranoid. Surely nothing could go wrong. I had no idea how wrong I was. The weeks following the family dinner should have been filled with joy and excitement. Sienna had officially booked Willowbrook Gardens, put down deposits with the caterer and florist, and was moving forward with wedding plans. She had chosen a beautiful sage green color scheme with ivory and gold accents, selected wildflowers and garden roses for her arrangements, and planned a menu of comfort food favorites: chicken marsala, roasted vegetables, a make-your-own pasta station, and a dessert bar. It was personal, intimate, and perfectly Sienna. But then Vanessa started inserting herself into everything. It began innocently enough. Sienna had scheduled a cake tasting at Sweet Sensations Bakery in downtown Riverside Heights on a Tuesday afternoon. It was supposed to be just the two of us, a grandmother-granddaughter outing. I'd been looking forward to it all week. I arrived at the bakery at 2 p.m. sharp, dressed in a comfortable floral blouse and plants. Sweet Sensations was a charming little shop with a pink and white striped awning, display cases full of beautiful pastries, and the heavenly smell of vanilla and butter. Sienna was already there, sitting at one of the small tables, but she wasn't alone. Vanessa sat beside her, dressed in an expensive-looking white pantsuit, her designer sunglasses pushed up on her head, scrolling through her phone. "Nana!" Sienna called out when she saw me, but I could see the tension in her face. "I'm so glad you're here." "Hello, sweetheart," I said, kissing her cheek before turning to Vanessa with a polite smile. "Vanessa, I didn't know you'd be joining us." "Oh, I hope you don't mind," Vanessa said, her voice bright, but her eyes calculating. "I ran into Sienna at the coffee shop this morning, and when she mentioned the cake tasting, I just couldn't resist tagging along. I have so much experience with weddings. I've consulted on at least a dozen, and I thought I could provide some valuable input." I sat down, trying to hide my disappointment. This was supposed to be a special moment between Sienna and me, continuing a tradition from when she was little and we'd bake together in my kitchen. Elena Rodriguez, the owner of Sweet Sensations, emerged from the back with a tray of cake samples. Elena was a sweet woman in her 40s who'd opened the bakery 5 years ago and had built a reputation for exceptional wedding cakes. Ladies, welcome, Elena said warmly. I'm so excited to help you find the perfect cake for your big day, Sienna. I've prepared 6 different flavor combinations for you to try. She set down the tray, explaining each sample: classic vanilla with raspberry filling, chocolate with salted caramel, lemon with blueberry, red velvet with cream cheese frosting, almond with cherry, and champagne with strawberry. Sienna's eyes lit up as she looked at the samples. Oh, Elena, these all look amazing. Start with whichever one calls to you, Elena encouraged. Sienna picked up the fork and reached for the lemon with blueberry. It had always been her favorite combination since she was a little girl. I'd made her lemon blueberry muffins every summer when she visited. But before she could taste it, Vanessa's hand shot out and moved that plate away. Actually, Sienna, you should start with the champagne one, Vanessa said authoritatively. It's much more sophisticated. Lemon and blueberry is so elementary school bake sale. I watched Sienna's face fall, her excitement dimming. I like lemon and blueberry, Sienna said quietly. Of course you do, sweetie, but this is a wedding, not a birthday party. You want something elegant and refined. Trust me on this. Vanessa took a bite of the champagne cake and made an exaggerated sound of approval. See, this is what a wedding cake should taste like. Sienna dutifully tried the champagne cake, but I could see her heart wasn't in it. We went through all the samples, with Vanessa commenting on each one. The vanilla was too plain, the chocolate was too heavy, the red velvet was overdone, only the champagne and the almond met her approval. So, which flavor are you thinking? Sienna asked Elena, her pen poised over her order pad. Sienna glanced at the lemon blueberry sample, then at Vanessa, then at me. I could see the conflict in her eyes. The lemon blueberry is your favorite, isn't it, sweetheart? I said gently. Yes, but we want to make sure the cake is appropriate for the venue and the guest list. Willowbrook Gardens is an upscale venue. The cake should reflect that. I really think the champagne cake is the way to go. Actually, Elena interjected diplomatically, the lemon blueberry is one of our most popular wedding cakes. It's fresh, elegant, and perfect for a September wedding. And if Sienna loves it, that's what matters most. Vanessa's smile tightened. I'm sure you know your business, but I have extensive experience with high-end events. The champagne cake is more sophisticated. I watched this exchange with growing irritation. This was Sienna's wedding, Sienna's cake, and Sienna's decision. Who was Vanessa to override her preferences? Sienna, I said firmly, what do you want? My granddaughter looked at me, and I saw something I hadn't seen before: fear. She was afraid of making Vanessa angry, afraid of causing conflict. I think maybe I'll go with the champagne, she said quietly. Excellent choice, Vanessa said triumphantly. Now, about the size. How many tiers were you planning? We were thinking 3 tiers. That should serve 80 guests with some extra. 3 tiers, she laughed. Sienna, sweetie, that's going to look so small and sad in the reception pavilion at Willowbrook. You need at least 5 tiers to make a proper statement, maybe even 6. But we only have 80 guests. A 6-tier cake would serve like 200 people. So what? Better to have too much than too little. Besides, a grand cake makes for better photos. Trust me, you'll thank me later. Elena looked uncomfortable. A 6-tier cake would be significantly more expensive. The 3-tier cake in Sienna's current plan is $450. A 6-tier would be closer to $1,200. I saw Sienna's face go pale. That was $750 more than budgeted, and she didn't have extra money to spare. That's quite a difference, I said carefully. Oh, I'm sure we can figure it out, Vanessa said breezily. After all, Margot, you're already being so generous with the wedding. What's a few hundred more to make sure Sienna has the cake of her dreams? There it was. the assumption that I would simply pay for whatever Vanessa decided was necessary. Actually, I said, keeping my voice calm and firm, Sienna and I had agreed on a 3-tier cake. That's what fits the budget and the guest list. Vanessa's eyes flashed with something cold. Of course, if money is tight, I understand. Donovan and I could always pitch in. We wouldn't want Sienna to feel like she's being limited by financial constraints. The implication was clear. If I couldn't afford to give Sienna everything, Vanessa and Donovan would step in, making me look cheap and inadequate. The 3-tier cake is perfect, Sienna said quickly, clearly uncomfortable with the tension. That's what I want. Elena, let's go with 3 tiers, champagne flavor. I could hear the defeat in her voice. She'd been bullied into the flavor she didn't want, and now she was holding the line on at least one aspect of her original plan. Elena wrote down the order, and we finished up the appointment. As we left the bakery, Vanessa linked her arm through Sienna's. That was so fun. We should do more planning together. When's your next appointment? I have a meeting with the florist next Thursday, she said hesitantly.
Perfect. I'll put it in my calendar. It'll be like having a wedding planner, except free. Vanessa laughed. See you then. She walked away toward her car, a BMW that I knew for a fact was leased in Donovan's name, leaving Sienna and me standing on the sidewalk. Nana, I'm so sorry, Sienna said immediately, tears welling in her eyes. I didn't know she was going to be there. She just showed up at the coffee shop this morning and kind of invited herself. It's all right, sweetheart. No, it's not. This was supposed to be our special time, and she ruined it. And now I'm getting a cake flavor I don't even really want because she made me feel stupid for liking lemon blueberry. I pulled my granddaughter into a hug. Listen to me. This is your wedding, not Vanessa's. You need to start standing up for what you want. I know. It's just, she's with Dad, and I don't want to cause problems. He seems happy with her, and if I push back too hard, it might cause issues between them. I don't want to be the reason they fight. This was exactly what I'd been afraid of. Vanessa was using Sienna's good nature and her desire not to rock the boat to manipulate her into decisions she didn't want. Your father would understand if you set boundaries with Vanessa, I said gently. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure it was true. Donovan had been so defensive of Vanessa lately, so quick to make excuses for her behavior. Over the next 2 weeks, Vanessa showed up at every single wedding planning appointment. The florist meeting, the meeting with the caterer to finalize the menu, the appointment to choose linens and chair covers. Every single time Vanessa appeared, always with the same excuse, she'd run into Sienna, or Donovan had mentioned the appointment, or she just happened to be in the area. And every time, she tried to push for upgrades, changes, and additions that would cost more money. At Blooms and Petals, the florist shop, Vanessa had criticized Sienna's choice of wildflowers and garden roses. These are so cottagecore, she said, with a dismissive wave of her hand. You need something more dramatic. Orchids, calla lilies, something with real impact. I like the wildflowers, Sienna had said, but her voice was getting weaker each time. Of course you do, but think about the photos. Think about how it will look. You want your wedding to look expensive, don't you? At the caterer's office, Vanessa had pushed for a surf and turf option instead of Sienna's planned chicken and pasta. Everyone does chicken. It's so boring. Lobster and filet mignon, now that's a menu people will remember. That would add about $45 per person. For 80 guests, that's an additional $3,600. Sienna looked physically ill at that number, but Vanessa had just smiled. Well, we want the best, don't we? Each time, Sienna had held firm, keeping her original choices. But I could see the toll it was taking on her. She was stressed, unhappy, and starting to dread her own wedding planning. I tried to be there for every appointment to run interference, but I couldn't always make it. I had my own doctor's appointments, my volunteer work at the community center,
and the simple limitations of being 70 years old without a car. Sienna drove me everywhere, and I hated adding to her burden. Then came the appointment I couldn't attend. I'd caught a spring cold, nothing serious, but enough that I was running a fever and felt too weak to leave my apartment. Sienna had called to check on me that morning. "Nana, are you sure you don't want me to reschedule the venue walkthrough? I can do it next week when you're feeling better." "Absolutely not," I said, my voice hoarse. "You need to do that final walkthrough with the venue coordinator to confirm all the details. Don't reschedule on my account." "But I wanted you there." "I know, sweetheart, and I'm so sorry, but you'll be fine. Bradley will be with you, right?" "Yes, and Dad said he might try to stop by after work." "There you go. You'll have support. Just stick to your plan and everything will be perfect." "Okay, Nana. I love you. Feel better." "I love you too, precious girl." I spent that day resting, drinking tea, and catching up on my reading. I took some cold medicine and fell asleep on my couch around 3 p.m. I woke up to my phone ringing at 6:30 p.m. It was Sienna, and she was crying. Nana, something terrible happened." I sat up so fast I got dizzy. What? What happened? Are you hurt?" "No, I'm not hurt, but Nana, Vanessa showed up at the venue walkthrough." My stomach dropped. "What did she do?" "She told the venue coordinator that she was the family representative and that there were going to be some changes to the orders. She upgraded everything, Nana, everything." "What do you mean upgraded?" Sienna's words came out in a rush, punctuated by sobs. "She changed the catering order from the package we selected to their premium package. She added a raw bar, upgraded from chicken to prime rib, added 3 additional appetizer stations, and upgraded the dessert bar to include a crepe station and a chocolate fountain. She can't just do that." Though I was beginning to suspect that somehow she had. She's not all. She changed the florals from my wildflower arrangements to premium imported roses and orchids. She added floral arches, hanging installations, and centerpieces for twice as many tables. She upgraded the tent to the largest one they have with crystal chandeliers and fabric draping. Sienna, slow down. How could she authorize all these changes? She signed new contracts, Nana. She told them that she had authorization to make changes on behalf of the family, and the venue coordinator believed her because Dad was there.
Donovan was there? He showed up right after she started making changes. I tried to stop her, Nana. I told her she had no right to change my wedding plans, but she just kept talking over me, saying she was helping and that she was ensuring the wedding would be worthy of the venue. And Dad... Sienna's voice broke. Dad didn't stop her. I felt a cold fury building in my chest. What did your father say? He said Vanessa was just trying to help and that I should be grateful someone cares enough to make sure things are done right. When I said I couldn't afford all these changes, when I told him this wasn't what I wanted, he got annoyed with me. He said I was being inflexible and ungrateful. How much? I asked, though I was afraid to hear the answer. How much did all these changes cost? Sienna's voice was barely a whisper. The new total is $31,000. That's $11,500 more than what you gave me, Nana. I don't have that money. Bradley and I combined don't have that money. What am I going to do? I sat there on my couch, my cold suddenly the absolute least of my problems, trying to process what I was hearing. Vanessa had unilaterally changed my granddaughter's wedding plans, adding $11,500 to the cost, and my son had allowed it. Sienna, listen to me very carefully. You are not responsible for these changes. You didn't authorize them, you didn't agree to them, and you don't have to pay for them. But Vanessa signed contracts. The venue coordinator showed them to me. They have Dad's name on them, and they're legally binding. If we don't pay, we could lose our deposit and get sued. She signed in your father's name? Yes,
She told the coordinator that Dad had given her power of attorney to handle family financial matters. Nana, I don't think that's true, but the venue believed her. This was fraud. Clear, unambiguous fraud. Vanessa had forged my son's signature or misrepresented her authority, costing Sienna an additional $11,500. Did you talk to your father about this after Vanessa left? I tried. I called him as soon as I got to my car. He said... Sienna's voice cracked again. He said that Vanessa was just trying to help and that I should be grateful someone cares enough to make sure things are done right. When I said I couldn't afford all these changes, when I told him this wasn't what I wanted, he got annoyed with me. He said I was being inflexible and ungrateful. He said what? He said that family takes care of family and that you'd given me $19,500, so what was another $11,500? He said you'd understand that this was important. I couldn't speak. My own son, the boy I'd raised, the man whose garage I'd helped fund with a small inheritance from my mother, was asking me to pay another $11,500 because his girlfriend had decided to play wedding planner with someone else's money. Nana? Are you still there? I'm here, sweetheart. I'm just processing. I'm so sorry, Nana. This is all my fault. I should have been stronger. I should have stopped her. This is not your fault, I said firmly. None of this is your fault. Vanessa had no right to do what she did, and your father had no right to enable it. What am I going to do? I can't afford this. The wedding is in less than 4 months. If I cancel all the upgrades, I'll lose the deposits Vanessa put down. She put down $3,000 on the spot to secure everything, and the venue might charge cancellation fees. My mind was racing. I didn't have another $11,500. Even if I emptied my entire savings account, I'd still be short by several $1,000s. And even if I could somehow scrape together that much money, something about this entire situation felt deeply, profoundly wrong. Why would Vanessa do this? What did she have to gain? And then, like a bolt of lightning, a thought occurred to me. A terrible, suspicious thought. Sienna, these contracts that Vanessa signed, do you have copies? The venue coordinator is emailing them to me tonight. Send them to me as soon as you get them. All of them. Why? What are you thinking? I'm not sure yet, but something about this doesn't add up. Vanessa spent weeks pushing for upgrades, always making sure they'd cost significantly more money. And now she's committed to $11,500 in additional expenses that she knows you can't afford. There has to be a reason. You think she's doing this on purpose? I don't know what I think yet, but I'm going to find out. That night, despite being sick with a cold, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at my ceiling, my mind churning through everything that had happened. Vanessa's behavior hadn't started at the venue walkthrough. It had been building for weeks, from the very moment she'd learned about my $19,500 gift. Every appointment she'd crashed, every upgrade she'd suggested, every time she tried to convince Sienna that her choices weren't good enough, it had all been leading to this. But why? What was her endgame? At 11 p.m., my laptop chimed with an incoming email. It was from Sienna, with the subject line, New Venue Contracts. I got up, made myself another cup of tea, and opened my laptop at my kitchen table. The email contained 5 PDF attachments, updated contracts with the venue, the caterer, the florist, the tent company, and the lighting company. I opened them one by one, reading through the dense legal language and itemized costs. Everything Sienna had described was there: premium packages, expensive upgrades, additions nobody had asked for. But something caught my eye in the payment terms section of each contract. Instead of the usual arrangement where final payment was due 1 week before the event, these contracts specified that payment would be processed in installments, with the first installment due immediately, the second due 30 days before the wedding, and the final payment due a week before the wedding.
That was unusual, but not unheard of for large events. What was unusual was the payment method specified. Instead of payment going directly to the vendors, the contracts indicated that payments would be processed through VH Event Management Solutions as a coordination service. VH Event Management Solutions. VH. Vanessa Harding. My blood ran cold as I pulled up a search engine and typed in VH Event Management Solutions, New Jersey. The search results showed a website that had been created less than 3 months ago. The site was sleek and professional looking, with stock photos of elegant weddings and corporate events. The About Us page featured a photo of Vanessa in professional attire, describing herself as a premier event management consultant with over a decade of experience in luxury event coordination. There was a services page listing various event planning packages and coordination fees. And there, buried in the fine print of the Terms and Services page, was language indicating that VH Event Management Solutions charged a 15% coordination fee on all vendor services managed through their platform. 15% of $31,000 was $4,650. I sat back in my chair, my hands shaking. Vanessa had inserted herself into Sienna's wedding planning, systematically convinced her to upgrade everything, authorized $11,500 in additional expenses, and structured the contracts so that all payments would flow through her own company, where she would skim 15% off the top. She was using my granddaughter's wedding, funded by my life savings, to line her own pockets. And based on the payment schedule, the first installment of $10,000 was due in 2 days. Of that $10,000, Vanessa would pocket $1,500 before passing the rest along to the actual vendors. I felt physically ill, not just from my cold, but from the realization of what this woman was doing. But I needed more proof. I needed to understand the full scope of this scheme before I could do anything about it. I spent the next hour researching VH Event Management Solutions. The business had been registered just 3 months ago, right around the time Vanessa had learned about my $19,500 gift to Sienna. The business registration listed Vanessa as the sole owner and operator. I found her LinkedIn profile, which claimed she had extensive experience in luxury event management, but when I looked at her employment history, there were gaps and inconsistencies. The boutique marketing firm she claimed she had run showed no online presence. The major clients she had supposedly worked with couldn't be verified. It was all smoke and mirrors. Vanessa had created a fake company to funnel wedding money through, taking a cut before paying the actual vendors. But what about Donovan? Was he involved? Did he know what Vanessa was doing? I thought back to his reaction when Sienna had confronted him. He'd defended Vanessa, told Sienna she should be grateful, suggested I could pay the additional costs. Either he was complicit in the scheme, or he was being manipulated just as badly as Sienna was. I wanted to believe my son wasn't a criminal. I wanted to believe he was just a fool in love with the wrong woman, but I needed to know for sure. At 1 a.m., I made a decision. I was going to drive to Donovan's house first thing in the morning and confront him directly. I needed to look my son in the eyes and ask him what he knew about Vanessa's scheme. But first, I needed to document everything I'd found. I took screenshots of Vanessa's website, saved copies of all the contracts, printed out the business registration information, and compiled everything into a folder. If this was fraud, and I was increasingly certain it was, I was going to need evidence. I finally went to bed around 2 a.m., exhausted but too angry to sleep. I kept seeing Sienna's face, hearing the tears in her voice when she'd called me. My granddaughter's wedding, the most important day of her life, had been hijacked by a con artist who saw it as nothing more than an opportunity to make money. And my son, who should have been protecting his daughter, had either enabled it or been blind to see what was happening.
As I lay there in the dark, I made a promise to myself. I was going to stop this. I was going to expose Vanessa for what she was, and I was going to make sure Sienna got the wedding she actually wanted, not the overpriced spectacle Vanessa had created for her own profit. But I had no idea yet just how deep this deception went, or what I would discover when I started digging. I woke up at 6 a.m. feeling slightly better. My fever had broken overnight, though I still felt weak and congested. But I had work to do. I made coffee, showered, and dressed in comfortable but presentable clothes. By 8 a.m., I was calling a cab to take me to Donovan's house. I didn't want to bother Sienna, who was probably still emotionally destroyed from yesterday's events. The drive took 20 minutes. Donovan's house looked the same as always, modest, slightly worn around the edges, with his work truck parked in the driveway. It was 8:30 a.m., so he should be getting ready to head to the garage. I paid the cab driver and walked up to the front door, my folder of evidence clutched in my hand. I knocked firmly. After a moment, I heard footsteps, and then the door opened. But it wasn't Donovan. It was Vanessa. She stood there in a silk robe that probably cost more than my entire month's worth of groceries, her hair tousled, clearly having just woken up. "Margot," she said, surprise flickering across her face before being replaced by that calculated smile. "Is everything all right?" The fact that she was answering Donovan's door at 8:30 a.m., clearly having spent the night, told me more than I wanted to know about how seriously my son was taking this relationship. "I need to speak with Donovan," I said firmly. "It's important." "Of course. Come in. He's in the shower, but he should be out soon. Can I get you some coffee?"
I stepped into the house, noting with distaste that Vanessa was making herself completely at home in my son's house. Her expensive purse was on the console table. Her designer shoes were by the door. Her presence had taken over. "No, thank you," I said coolly. We sat in the living room in uncomfortable silence. I refused to make small talk with this woman who was scamming my family. After about 10 minutes, Donovan appeared, dressed for work in his usual uniform of jeans and a shirt with the Whitmore's Garage logo. He stopped short when he saw me. "Mom, what are you doing here? Are you feeling better? Sienna said you had a cold." "I need to talk to you," I said. "Alone." Donovan glanced at Vanessa, who smiled sweetly. "Of course. I'll just go get dressed and give you two some privacy." She left the room, but I had no doubt she was listening from somewhere nearby. "Mom, what's this about?" Donovan asked, sitting down across from me. I opened my folder and pulled out the contracts. "Did you authorize these?" Donovan took the papers, his face confused as he scanned them. "What are these?" "These are the new contracts for Sienna's wedding. The ones Vanessa signed yesterday using your name. Did you give her permission to do that?" She said she was helping, that she was making sure Sienna had a nice wedding. By adding $11,500 to the cost? By upgrading everything without Sienna's permission?" Donovan's face flushed. "Mom, Vanessa knows about events. She has experience with this stuff. She was just trying to help make Sienna's wedding special." "Special or expensive?" I pulled out the printout about VH Event Management Solutions. "Did you know that Vanessa structured these contracts so that all payments go through her company? Did you know she's taking a 15% cut of every dollar spent on this wedding?" Donovan stared at the paper, his face going pale. "What are you talking about?" "Vanessa created a company 3 months ago, right after she learned I was paying for Sienna's wedding. She's been systematically pushing for upgrades and changes, and now she set up contracts that funnel all the money through her business, where she takes a percentage before paying the actual vendors. She's using your daughter's wedding to make money." "That can't be right. There must be some mistake." "It's all here, Donovan. Business registration, contracts, her website. Your girlfriend is running a scam, and she's using our family to do it." I watched my son's face as he processed this information. Confusion, disbelief, and then, worst of all, defensive anger.
Mom, I think you're misunderstanding what's happening here. Vanessa told me about the management company. It's a legitimate service. Event coordinators charge fees all the time. Did she tell you she was charging Sienna those fees? Did Sienna agree to pay for event management services? Well, no, but there is no but, Donovan. This is fraud. She forged your signature on contracts, committed your daughter to thousands of dollars in expenses she can't afford, and structured everything so she can pocket money in the process. You're being dramatic, Mom. Vanessa loves me. She loves my family. She wouldn't. She did, I interrupted. It's all right here. And yesterday, when Sienna called you upset, you told her she should be grateful. You suggested I should pay the additional $11,500. Did Vanessa tell you to say that? Donovan stood up abruptly. You need to leave. What? I said get out. I don't want to hear any more of this. Sienna is getting a beautiful wedding, better than anything she could have planned herself. If you don't want to help pay for it, fine. But don't come in here with these wild accusations about Vanessa. I gathered my papers slowly, my heart breaking. This was my son, my boy, and he was choosing to believe a con artist over his own mother. When you're ready to see the truth, I said quietly, I'll be here. Don't hold your breath, Donovan said coldly. I walked out of his house into the cool spring morning, tears streaming down my face. Vanessa had won this round. She'd isolated Donovan so completely that he couldn't see what was right in front of him. But I wasn't done fighting, not by a long shot. As I called another cab to take me home, I realized what I needed to do next. If Donovan wouldn't listen to me, maybe Sienna's wedding venue would listen. Maybe the vendors would listen. Maybe if I could prove that Vanessa had no authority to make these changes, I could get the contracts voided. And I knew someone who could help me figure out if that was possible. My nephew, James, was a contract attorney in Philadelphia. It was time to make a phone call.
I got home from Donovan's house feeling defeated, but not broken. My son had chosen to believe Vanessa's lies over my evidence, but that didn't mean I was going to give up. If anything, his rejection had strengthened my resolve. I made myself lunch, simple chicken soup that I could barely taste through my lingering cold, and then settled at my kitchen table with my phone and the folder of evidence. James Whitmore, my late husband Malcolm's nephew, was 45 years old and a contract attorney at a prestigious firm in Philadelphia. He specialized in business law and fraud cases. We'd stayed close over the years, and he'd always told me to call if I ever needed legal advice. I dialed his office number. Whitmore and Associates? How may I direct your call? James Whitmore, please. This is his Aunt Margot Whitmore. One moment, Mrs. Whitmore. There was a brief hold, then James's warm voice came on the line. Aunt Margot, what a wonderful surprise. How are you? I've been better, James. I need your legal advice. It's about Donovan and Sienna. His tone immediately shifted to professional concern. What's happened? I spent the next 20 minutes explaining everything. The $19,500 gift, Vanessa's systematic interference, the unauthorized contract changes, VH event management solutions, the 15% coordination fee, and Donovan's refusal to listen to reason. James was silent for a long moment after I finished. Then he said, Aunt Margot, what you're describing is textbook fraud. Multiple counts, actually. Forgery, if she signed Donovan's name without authorization, fraudulent misrepresentation to the vendors, potentially elder financial abuse if she's targeting you specifically as the funding source. So I'm not crazy. This is really as bad as I think it is. It's worse. Can you email me everything you have? The contracts, the business registrations, screenshots of her website, everything. Of course. I'm going to review these documents, and then I'm going to make some calls. Aunt Margot, I want you to understand something. If we pursue this legally, it could get very messy. Donovan is going to be caught in the middle. There may be criminal charges if Vanessa forged his signature. I know, but I can't let her steal from Sienna, and I can't let her get away with this. I agree. Give me 24 hours to review everything and do some research. In the meantime, don't make any payments, don't agree to anything, and if Vanessa or Donovan pressure you for money, document everything. After hanging up with James, I felt a weight lift slightly. I wasn't alone in this fight anymore. I had someone with legal expertise who believed me and could help. I spent the rest of that afternoon emailing James all of the evidence I'd compiled, then called Sienna to check on her. "Nana," she answered, her voice thick with tears, "I don't know what to do. The venue called me today saying the first payment of $10,000 is due by Friday. That's 2 days away. I don't have that money." "Don't pay anything yet," I said firmly. "I've spoken with your cousin James, well, your father's cousin technically. He's a lawyer, and he's looking into whether these contracts are even legal." "You think they might not be?" "I know they're not legitimate. Vanessa had no authority to make those changes or sign those contracts. James is going to help us figure out how to fix this." "But what if the venue sues? What if I lose my deposit?" "That's not going to happen, sweetheart. Trust me, we're going to make this right." But as I said those words, I prayed I was telling the truth. The next day, I received a call from James at 10 a.m. "Aunt Margot, I've been through all the documents you sent. I have good news and bad news. Which do you want first?" "The bad news." "The bad news is that this fraud is even more extensive than you realized. I did some digging on Vanessa Harding, and her real name is Vanessa Marie Harding Chen. She's been married twice before. Both marriages ended in divorce, both ex-husbands filed restraining orders, and both claimed she'd stolen money from them during the relationships." My blood ran cold. "Does Donovan know this?" "I doubt it. She's been using just Vanessa Harding in New Jersey, and her previous marriages were in other states. But there's more. I contacted the vendors listed on these contracts, the caterer, the florist, the tent company. None of them have heard of VH Event Management Solutions. The contracts Vanessa signed aren't with the actual vendors at all." "What do you mean?" "She created fake contracts that look like they're with legitimate vendors, but the payment instructions route everything through her company. The real vendors haven't been contacted about any changes to Sienna's wedding. They still have the original orders on file for the $19,500 package." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "So the upgrades don't even exist?" "Correct. Vanessa was planning to take the money, pay the vendors their original contracted amount, and pocket the difference. We're not talking about a 15% coordination fee. We're talking about stealing the entire $11,500. Oh my God. It gets worse. I pulled financial records, public information from her previous legal cases. Vanessa has a pattern. She targets men going through life transitions, usually divorces or the death of a spouse. She inserts herself into their families, identifies sources of money or assets, and then creates schemes to divert those funds to herself. She's done this at least 3 times that I can document."
She's a professional con artist. Yes, and Donovan is her latest mark. But this time, she's not just targeting him. She's targeting you and Sienna. I sat down heavily, my hand over my heart. My son was in a relationship with a criminal who had systematically deceived him and was now stealing from his own daughter? James, what do we do? That's the good news. These contracts are completely fraudulent and unenforceable. Vanessa had no authority to sign them. The company she claims to represent doesn't have legitimate standing, and the vendors themselves haven't agreed to any of these terms. We can void everything and get Sienna back to her original plan. Will she lose her deposits? No! The original contracts are still in effect with the real vendors. Nothing has actually changed on their end because Vanessa never contacted them. The fake contracts she created are worthless. Relief flooded through me. So Sienna can still have her wedding? Exactly as she originally planned it, for exactly the $19,500 you provided. But Aunt Margot, we need to do more than just void these contracts. We need to report Vanessa to the police. What she's done is criminal fraud, and if we don't stop her, she'll do this to someone else.
What about Donovan? That's complicated. If he knew about the fraud, he could be charged as an accomplice. If he didn't know, and based on what you've told me, I suspect he didn't, he's a victim too. But he's not going to want to believe that. He's already defending her. He threw me out of his house yesterday when I tried to show him the evidence. James sighed. Love makes people blind, especially when they're vulnerable. Donovan has been lonely since his divorce. Vanessa knew exactly how to exploit that. So, what's our next step? I'm going to contact the vendors directly and confirm that the original contracts are still in place. Then I'm going to send Vanessa a cease and desist letter informing her that we know about the fraud and that if she continues to contact Sienna or the vendors, we'll pursue criminal charges. Finally, I'm going to prepare a report for the police with all the evidence we've compiled. Won't that hurt Donovan? It might, but Aunt Margot, Vanessa is a predator. The longer she stays in Donovan's life, the more damage she'll do. We need to protect him, even if he doesn't want to be protected. James worked quickly. By that afternoon, he'd contacted all the vendors and confirmed that Sienna's original orders were still active and unchanged. The venue coordinator at Willowbrook Gardens was shocked to learn that someone had created fraudulent contracts in their name. Mrs. Whitmore, the coordinator told me when I called her myself. We take this very seriously. We've never heard of VH Event Management Solutions, and we certainly never authorized anyone to make changes to your granddaughter's wedding. The person who met with Sienna must have been impersonating our company. So the original plan is still in place? Absolutely. Everything Sienna ordered is confirmed for September 28th, the $19,500 package exactly as planned. And we're going to add some complimentary upgrades as an apology for this confusion. Upgraded linens, and an additional hour of reception time. No charge. When I told Sienna, she burst into tears of relief. Nana, I can't believe it. I thought my wedding was ruined. I thought I'd have to cancel everything. Your wedding is going to be perfect, sweetheart. Exactly the way you wanted it. But what about Vanessa? What about Dad? James is handling Vanessa. As for your father, we're going to have to give him time to see the truth. But I was running out of patience for giving Donovan time. My son needed to understand what kind of person he'd let into his life before she destroyed him completely. James sent the cease and desist letter to Vanessa via email and certified mail on Thursday afternoon. It was a comprehensive legal document outlining all the fraudulent activities we'd discovered, stating that the contracts she created were void and unenforceable, and warning her that continued contact with Sienna or the vendors would result in criminal prosecution. I didn't expect her to go quietly. Friday morning, my phone rang at 7 a.m. It was Donovan, and he was furious. "What the hell have you done?" he yelled before I could even say hello. "Vanessa just got a letter from some lawyer accusing her of fraud. You sent a lawyer after her?" "I sent a lawyer after the truth. And the truth is that Vanessa created fake contracts, forged signatures, and tried to steal over $11,000 from Sienna's wedding fund." "That's a lie! Vanessa would never." "Donovan, the vendors confirmed it. None of them have heard of her company. The contracts she showed Sienna were fakes. She was planning to take the money and run." "You're just saying that because you hate her. You've hated her from the beginning." "I hate what she's doing to you and your children. I hate that she's a con artist who's targeted our family. I hate that my son is so blinded by infatuation that he can't see he's being used." "I'm done with this, Mom. I'm done with your conspiracy theories and your interference. Vanessa and I are getting married." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "You heard me. Vanessa and I are getting engaged. We were going to announce it at Sienna's wedding, but you've made that impossible now. So I'm telling you now, she's going to be my wife, and you need to accept that or stay out of my life." The line went dead. I sat there holding the phone, tears streaming down my face. I'd lost my son. Maybe not forever, but for now, he was completely under Vanessa's control. But I couldn't back down.
Not when I knew the truth. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. There was a knock on my apartment door, and when I opened it, I found myself face to face with a woman I'd never met before. She was about 40 years old, well-dressed in a business suit, with dark hair pulled back in a professional bun. She held a briefcase and a badge. Mrs. Margot Whitmore? Yes. I'm Detective Sarah Brennan with the Riverside Heights Police Department, Financial Crimes Division. May I come in? I'd like to talk to you about Vanessa Harding. My heart started racing. Of course. Please come in. We sat in my small living room, and Detective Brennan opened her briefcase, pulling out a file folder. Mrs. Whitmore, I understand you recently filed a report with our department regarding fraudulent contracts related to a wedding. Your nephew, James Whitmore, sent us a comprehensive packet of evidence. Yes, that's right. I want you to know that we've been investigating Miss Harding for several months now. She's a person of interest in at least 3 other fraud cases in New Jersey. Your report gave us the evidence we needed to move forward with charges. There are other victims? Yes. Vanessa has been running similar schemes across the state. She targets middle-aged men, usually recently divorced, and their families. She identifies sources of money, inheritances, savings, business assets, and creates elaborate schemes to steal them. The wedding fraud is a new variation, but it follows her established pattern. Does my son know about the other cases? Detective Brennan shook her head. We doubt it. Vanessa is very good at compartmentalizing her life. Each victim believes they're in an exclusive, genuine relationship, while she's simultaneously running cons on multiple people. Multiple people? You mean she's seeing other men besides Donovan? We have evidence suggesting that, yes. She's currently in relationships with at least 2 other men in addition to your son, all of whom believe they're their only romantic partner. I felt sick. Not just for my son, but for the other men being deceived. What happens now? I asked. We're going to arrest Miss Harding. Based on the evidence you and your nephew provided, along with evidence from our other investigations, we have enough to charge her with multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and identity theft. But Mrs. Whitmore, I need to prepare you. This is going to be very hard on your son. I know. He's going to feel betrayed, humiliated, and angry. He may blame you for exposing her. These kinds of cases often cause family rifts that take years to heal. He's already told me to stay out of his life, I said quietly, but I'd rather have him angry at me than have him lose everything to a con artist. Detective Brennan nodded with understanding. You did the right thing. Many family members in your position choose to stay silent because they don't want to cause conflict. But silence allows predators like Vanessa to continue harming people. She stood up and handed me her card. We'll be making the arrest within the next 48 hours. I wanted to give you advance warning in case your son tries to contact you. He's going to be in crisis when this happens. Thank you, Detective. After she left, I sat in my living room for a long time, holding her card, preparing myself for what was coming. The arrest happened on Sunday morning. I got the call from James at 8:30 a.m. Aunt Margot, the police arrested Vanessa about an hour ago. She was at Donovan's house. How is he? Not good. The police had to interview him as part of the arrest. They showed him evidence of Vanessa's other relationships, her criminal history, the fake contracts. From what I understand, he's devastated. Should I go to him? Give him a few hours. Let him process. But yes, he's going to need you, even if he doesn't want to admit it yet. I spent the morning in a state of anxious waiting. I tried to distract myself with cleaning, with reading, with anything that would keep my mind occupied. But all I could think about was my son, alone in his house, dealing with the reality that the woman he'd planned to marry was a criminal who'd been using him. At 11 a.m., my phone rang. It was Donovan. Mom. His voice was broken, small, like a lost child. I'm here, sweetheart. Can you come over? I need you.
I'll be right there." I called a cab and arrived at Donovan's house 15 minutes later. He opened the door looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. His eyes were red from crying, his hair was a mess, and he was still in the clothes he'd been wearing the day before. "Mom," and then he broke down, sobbing like I hadn't seen him since he was a little boy. I held my son while he cried, there in his doorway, not caring who saw or what they thought. This was my child, and he was hurting, and nothing else mattered. Eventually, we moved inside. I made tea while Donovan sat at his kitchen table, his head in his hands. He saw my "So sorry, Mom. You tried to tell me. You tried to warn me. And I threw you out. I chose her over you, over Sienna, over everyone." "You didn't know," I said gently, setting a mug of tea in front of him. "She's a professional con artist. This is what she does. You're not the first person she's fooled, and unfortunately, you probably won't be the last. The police showed me pictures, Mom. Pictures of her with other men. She was engaged to someone in Princeton while she was telling me she loved me. She had an entire other life I knew nothing about."
I'm so sorry, Donovan. And the contracts for Sienna's wedding, they were all fake. She wasn't trying to help. She was trying to steal from my own daughter, using money you gave out of love. His voice broke again. How could I have been so stupid? You weren't stupid. You were lonely, and you wanted to believe someone loved you. That's human, not stupid. Sienna won't even answer my calls. Cole and Mason are barely speaking to me. And you, God, Mom, the things I said to you are forgiven, I said firmly. You're my son. I love you. Nothing Vanessa did or said could change that. Donovan looked up at me with tears streaming down his face. How can you forgive me so easily? Because you're my child, and because I know you didn't do any of this maliciously. You made mistakes, but you didn't set out to hurt anyone. Vanessa did. She's the villain here, not you. We talked for hours that day. Donovan told me everything. How Vanessa had slowly isolated him from his friends, how she'd convinced him to take out a second mortgage on his house to invest in her business ventures, how she'd been pressuring him to put her name on his bank accounts. I almost did it, Mom. I was going to add her to my accounts next week. If you hadn't stopped her when you did, she could have cleaned me out completely. But we did stop her, and now you can rebuild. I don't know how. I'm so ashamed. Everyone in town is going to know I was dating a con artist. The guys at the garage, Sienna's friends, everyone. Let them know. You're not the first person to be deceived, and you won't be the last. What matters is that you recognize what happened and don't let it happen again. How do I make things right with Sienna? You start by calling her and apologizing. Not explaining, not justifying, apologizing. Tell her you were wrong, that you should have protected her from Vanessa, and that you'll spend the rest of your life making it up to her. Donovan nodded slowly. Will she forgive me? Eventually. She loves you, Donovan, but it's going to take time. That evening, I facilitated a family meeting at my apartment. Sienna came, along with Cole and Mason. Bradley was there too, holding Sienna's hand, providing support. Donovan sat on my couch, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him, facing his children who'd been hurt by his poor judgment. I know sorry isn't enough. I know I failed you, all of you. I was supposed to protect you from people like Vanessa, and instead, I brought her into our lives and let her hurt you. Sienna was crying silently, but she didn't speak. Dad, do you have any idea what it was like watching you choose her over us? Every time we tried to tell you she was wrong, you defended her. I know. I was blind. I wanted so badly to believe that someone could love me after your mom left that I ignored every red flag. That's not an excuse, it's just the truth.
She tried to ruin my wedding, Sienna said quietly. She tried to steal from Nana, who's the most generous person I know, and you told me I should be grateful. I was wrong. Completely, utterly wrong. Sienna, I should have protected you from her. Instead, I became part of the problem. I don't know how to make that right, but I promise you I will spend the rest of my life trying. Mason, the youngest, spoke up. Dad, are you going to be okay? Like, financially? I heard you took out a second mortgage. Donovan nodded. It's going to be tight for a while. I may have to sell the house and downsize. But I'll figure it out. The important thing is that we're all safe now. I can move in with you if you need to. I have a spare room. Mom, you're 70 years old. You shouldn't have to support your middle-aged son. Family helps family. Isn't that what you said? The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. We talked for 2 hours that night. It wasn't perfect. There was still anger, hurt, and broken trust, but it was a beginning. As everyone was leaving, Sienna pulled me aside. Nana, I don't know how to thank you. If you hadn't investigated, if you hadn't been brave enough to expose Vanessa even when Dad pushed back, I would have lost everything. My wedding, my money, maybe my relationship with my brothers. You don't need to thank me, sweetheart. Protecting you is what grandmothers do. I love you so much. I love you too, precious girl. Vanessa Harding's trial took place 6 months later, in March. She was charged with multiple counts of fraud, forgery, identity theft, and elder financial abuse across 3 counties. I attended every day of the trial, sitting in the courtroom gallery with James beside me. Donovan came too, though he sat separately, still dealing with the embarrassment and trauma of what he'd been through. The prosecution presented a devastating case. They showed evidence of at least 7 different cons Vanessa had run over the past 5 years, stealing over $300,000 from her victims. There were testimonies from other men she'd deceived, from families she'd targeted, from vendors she'd scammed. When they presented the evidence from Sienna's case, the fake contracts, the fraudulent company, the cease and desist letter, I watched Vanessa's face remain completely emotionless. She showed no remorse, no shame, no recognition of the harm she had caused. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Vanessa was sentenced to 8 years in prison with restitution to be paid to all her victims. The judge's words still ring in my ears.
Miss Harding, you are a predator who targeted vulnerable people in their moments of grief and transition. You exploited their loneliness and their desire for connection. You showed no remorse for the financial and emotional devastation you caused. This court hopes that your time in prison will lead to reflection and rehabilitation, but primarily, this sentence is meant to protect the public from your continued criminal behavior. As they led Vanessa out of the courtroom in handcuffs, she looked right at me. For just a moment, her mask slipped, and I saw pure hatred in her eyes. But I didn't look away. I'd protected my family, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. September 28th dawned clear and beautiful, with the kind of perfect weather that makes you believe the universe is blessing the day. Sienna looked absolutely radiant in her wedding dress, a simple, elegant A-line gown with lace sleeves that had belonged to my mother. She'd chosen to honor her grandfather Malcolm by wearing his mother's vintage emerald ring, the same ring Bradley had proposed with. Willowbrook Gardens was everything we'd dreamed it would be. The wildflowers and garden roses were in full bloom, creating cascades of color throughout the venue. The tent was elegant but not ostentatious, with twinkling lights that would glow like stars once evening fell. The 3-tiered champagne cake, Sienna had decided to keep that choice, even though she could have changed it back to lemon blueberry, stood on a table decorated with fresh flowers. The menu was perfect comfort food, chicken marsala, roasted vegetables, and a pasta station, exactly as originally planned. I stood in the bridal suite with Sienna as she prepared to walk down the aisle. "Nana, I'm so nervous," she said, her hands shaking as she held her bouquet of wildflowers. "That's normal, sweetheart. Marriage is a big step.
It's not just that. I keep thinking about everything that happened. Vanessa, the fraud, Dad almost ruining everything. What if something else goes wrong? I took her hands in mine. Listen to me, Sienna. Vanessa tried to steal your joy, but she failed. You're about to marry the man you love, surrounded by people who care about you. This is your day, and nothing can take that away from you. You saved my wedding, Nana. You saved all of us. You would have done the same for me. There was a knock on the door, and Donovan appeared, looking handsome in his suit. The past 6 months had been hard on him. He'd sold his house, moved into a smaller apartment, and was working extra hours at the garage to pay off his debts. But he was healing, slowly but surely. "Sienna," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you look just like your mother did on our wedding day." "Thanks, Dad. Can I talk to you for a minute before we go out there?" I excused myself, giving them privacy, but through the door I heard Donovan's words. "I know I let you down. I know I allowed Vanessa to hurt you and that I didn't protect you the way a father should. But I want you to know that I've learned from my mistakes. I'm going to be better for you, for your brothers, and for myself. And I promise you, I will never let anyone hurt my family like that again." "I know, Dad. I love you." "I love you too, sweetheart. Now let's go get you married." The ceremony was beautiful. Sienna and Bradley exchanged vows under the gazebo, with the setting sun casting golden light over everything. There were tears, including mine, laughter, and a palpable sense of joy. During the reception, as I watched Sienna and Bradley dance their first dance as a married couple, Donovan came and sat beside me. "Mom, I never properly thanked you." "For what?" "For seeing through Vanessa when I couldn't. For fighting for Sienna even when I pushed you away. For not giving up on me even when I was being an idiot." "You're my son. I'll never give up on you." "I'm paying you back," he said firmly. "The $19,500 you gave for this wedding, I'm going to pay back every penny, even if it takes me years." "Donovan." "No, Mom, I need to do this. You saved for that money your whole life, and you gave it away out of love. The least I can do is make sure you have it back." I squeezed his hand. "We'll talk about it later. Right now, just enjoy your daughter's happiness." As the evening went on, I found myself surrounded by family. Cole and Mason were acting as unofficial hosts, making sure elderly relatives had seats and that everyone had enough to eat. James and his wife had driven down from Philadelphia to attend. Even some of my old friends from church had come, celebrating this happy ending to what could have been a disaster. Sienna came over to me during a break in the dancing, her face flushed with happiness. "Nana, thank you for everything. This is the most perfect day of my life." "You deserve it, sweetheart. You and Bradley both." "I was thinking about what you said about Vanessa trying to steal my joy. She didn't just try to steal money, she tried to steal this moment, this happiness. But she failed because you wouldn't let her. We all fought for this, Sienna. Your dad, your brothers, James, even the police. Good people standing together are stronger than any con artist. I want to be like you when I grow up, Nana. Strong, brave, and fiercely protective of the people I love. You already are, sweetheart. You already are." 3 years later, I'm sitting on my balcony on a warm June evening, tending to my herb garden and watching the sunset, when my phone rings. It's Sienna, and I can hear excitement in her voice before she even speaks. "Nana, are you sitting down?" "I am." "What's going on?" "Bradley and I are pregnant. You're going to be a great-grandmother."
The joy that fills my heart is indescribable. After everything we've been through, this news feels like a perfect new beginning. "Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful. When are you due?" "February. We just found out this morning. You're the first person we're telling." We talk for over an hour about baby names, nursery plans, and her excitement mixed with nervousness about becoming a mother. After we hang up, I sit in the gathering dusk, thinking about the journey that brought us here. Vanessa is in prison, with 5 more years left on her sentence. Donovan is dating again, carefully this time, with clear boundaries and a healthy skepticism. He paid me back the full $19,500, even though I told him it wasn't necessary.
Cole is in college studying criminal justice, inspired by watching his grandmother take down a con artist. Mason is finishing high school and planning to work at his father's garage. And Sienna, my precious Sienna, is building a beautiful life with Bradley, about to start a family of their own. The $19,500 I gave her for her wedding was supposed to be my gift to her happiness. Instead, it became the catalyst that exposed a predator, protected my family, and taught all of us about the power of standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. People sometimes ask me if I regret getting involved, if I wish I'd just stayed out of it and let things unfold naturally. My answer is always the same. I would do it all again in a heartbeat. Because at 70 years old, I learned something crucial about myself. I'm not just a grandmother, not just someone's mother, not just a sweet old lady who bakes cookies and tends a garden. I'm a fighter. I'm a protector. I'm someone who will move heaven and earth to keep her family safe. And that's a legacy worth more than any amount of money. So now I'm curious about you, my friends who've stayed with me through this entire journey. What would you have done in my position? Would you have investigated, or would you have trusted your son's judgment? Would you have pushed forward even after being rejected, or would you have backed off? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between keeping the peace and doing what you knew was right? Comment below and let me know. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you think about the importance of protecting your loved ones even when it's uncomfortable, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here with me through every twist and turn. And remember, sometimes the greatest gift we can give our family isn't money or things. It's the courage to stand up for them when they can't stand up for themselves. That's what love really means. If you enjoyed this story, I have 2 more channel favorites on the screen that will definitely surprise you. Click on them to continue your journey with us. Thank you for watching until the very end.